Hello, this is KryptoniteDragon. Welcome to our weekly Trophies on PSN podcast. I'll be joined today by Dante Zero. Say hello, Dante.
Hello.
And only Dante. I've did a little talking with Dante, my co-host, and apparently we want to try to cut back on the guests so that we don't neglect our news, which was the point of our podcast to begin with. So we'll, from time to time, try to make sure that we're covering topics instead of just chatting with people. So hence the just a solo today. And we are also testing our connection still, trying to improve that, because Dante is on the other side of the pond, as they say, and we are having some connection problems as of late. So we're going to try to iron that out and have a little conversation between him and I about the news, our recommendations for games, and of course our weekly recommendation for the arcade game. So starting off with that, we'll jump right into it. And I'm going to say that this week's game is a pretty cool little game involving sniping. And I'm just going to pull a little image up on the screen of that. There you go. Hopefully you can see that, Dante, because I can't see the Twitch window. But this week's game is a sniper-based game, and you can see that there in your window. And I encourage everyone to try that out. I think Zolanton has the high score in that. It's finally a game that I don't have the high score in. I'm getting better at it, though. I've tried to play the multiplayer a little bit earlier and kick some butt in that, but apparently it doesn't save your scores from multiplayer. I think it's only single player. But this week's game is Counter Snipe. So check that out. It is also a multiplayer game. Like I said, you can play against others online. It randomly pairs you with other people that are on, and you just basically have to snipe them before they snipe you. It can be a little bit tricky. It doesn't always show where the people are at, and you have to take a couple shots from time to time to be able to tell where a person's fighting. So pretty neat little game there. Also want to remind everyone we have a live podcast every Sunday, which will be at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we've had a little time change and stuff going on lately, both overseas and here in the U.S. Today we changed times and we set our clocks back, so hopefully that doesn't mess too many of you up, but we will be at the same time every week on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So, and now, let's talk a little bit about the site. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. Some of you may have realized that lately a few things have changed in terms of colors, etc. One of the things we're focusing on lately is adding some things that help with subscribers. And I don't know, Dante, have you got a chance to look at the player on your profile at all?
I haven't, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, at least you're honest about it. One of the things here is the player is, if you are a subscriber or staff member, it shows up right now. But basically we have a player that shows up on your profile that allows you to play YouTube videos. It allows you to play and listen to the music without actually having to watch the video. So it's a pretty cool little feature that we're adding for subscribers. And when you subscribe to the site, you'll actually get that. And you can have a playlist, and that playlist will always be up there every time you go to your player, unless you change it or you put in a different playlist code from someone else. For example, I have 200 songs up there that I listen to, and you could take my playlist number from either by searching members or by going to my profile and actually looking in the About Me section. You can take my profile number and actually put that into your player and get all my song lists. As well as when you visit my profile, you can play my song list. Actually prune songs out of that list and put them in your playlist and listen to them all day long, watch the YouTube videos. The player is small, so it's not to be obtrusive to the rest of your profile, but it's just one of the features we're looking at adding. Also in the news, Dante, we are effectively looking at moving server, and so I'll have more news about that in the coming weeks. We've come to the determination that we want to keep things as fast as possible.
Woohoo!
And before we get too busy with a big influx of folks from some of the other stuff we've got going on, we want to move our server. So we're going to be going to something that's a private server, faster speeds, and will enable us to do a lot of things we're not able to do right now. Some of our programming, for example, times out when you're on a shared server. Not allowing us to import some of the game stats and stuff that we wish to import. And it'll allow for chat rooms and everything to be added. And so look forward to that, where you'll be able to chat in real time. Maybe even the possibility, if things go well and the speed are good, that we could see some video chats or even some other things like that. Totally replace Skype by chance. But that's the plans, and I will update as we go along.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yes, I think I'm excited about it. I mean, I've really looked into the chat thing, and I want to bring these features because I originally was against it. And I think that people have convinced me that it's something that it doesn't disturb the forums. It gives the opportunity for people to just chit-chat versus being so formal. Because even the forums, in the relaxed state that it is, you can't just say, hey, dude, what's going on? And someone go, oh, nothing much, I was just watching my dog or whatever. You don't get that kind of conversation, that free-flowing conversation that you typically can have with friends. And so I think a chat room would be a nice little add-on there. People can shoot the shit, as they say, and just chat about anything. And, it's kind of missing from forum activity.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, I hope it wouldn't take away. If you got something to post and it's important and relevant to discussions, then that's, what the forum would be for. So I guess we'll see. There's plans to get that. Just know that. See, also I'm sorry, go ahead. Didn't hear what you said. Dante.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, we still want people to keep posting because of obviously things like the news articles that we do, and one of the areas that we want to push more into as well is making sure that we have reviews up for games and stuff. So yeah, we do need people to keep posting in the forum.
Indeed. And there's no way to really relay your guide or anything like that, your review, in any kind of chat, because it doesn't save that for people that come later. That's one of the unique things about the forum, is it's a conversation that's ongoing, and people can kind of come at their leisure. They don't have to be there right away for the conversation. They can come later and connect with it and put their 2 cents in, so to speak. It's kind of a slower conversation and more in-depth, and you can go back and read at any time what's been said. So the chat will not have the feature where you'll be able to read the discussion when you come in later. So, just two different things there that I think can still go together and work well. But as I said, we'll find out. And really, the speeds and everything are going to be a big determining factor. I don't want to slow us down to a crawl by having video chats. So if it comes to it, then the forums are going to be more important than having video chat. But we will be adding some kind of chat feature of some sort in the weeks to come. We're just going to have to figure out about moving. That's going to be an arduous process as it is. We also have plans to do it in a non-intrusive manner. So.
Yeah, looking forward to all the new changes from when it happens. Definitely exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but a large portion of the challenges with leaderboards, even the cards working, we pull a lot of that data down from Sony, and when you're on a server that's shared with other people, they have a lot of restrictions on certain programming timing out, cron jobs as they're called, specifically in this case, and they time out after a minute. And we need to be able to run and pull a lot of information that maybe runs 15 minutes, half an hour to pull down all the trophy information for all the members, and that's a pretty big draw. And if it's timing out after a minute, it's very, very hard to program that in chunks to have it work. So essentially we need to remove that restriction by going to a dedicated server, and then all those things are lifted. And then that allows for more easily to repair leaderboards, cards. These are still all in beta phases, as they say, and I think people sometimes forget that. But the leaderboard and things that are up on the site are a beta leaderboard. And we actually have some other versions of that allows you to sort the categories and everything, and it's all ready to go. We're just having a little bit of trouble getting all the stat information to update regularly. So we're kind of trying to get it released in its final form, and the move will make that happen. As soon as we move, we can get that working almost immediately. So good news, I think. Also, I want to encourage everyone to give your input. I put a poll up about, I don't know if you saw it yet, Dante, about subscriber, the sparkle behind the subscribers. I've been working a lot on, trying to get the colors right. We've had a lot of positions added. We're trying to redo the staff tiles, and we're kind of arguably got a lot of different colors that are needed to cover all those. So I've been doing a lot of work with that as well, and I have a poll out there to see if the majority like the subscriber sparkles. I do want to point out that it's kind of either the blue username or the subscriber sparkles that are up there. That is a very difficult effect to get right, and I spend a lot of time creating the image and the motion and the correct speeds and everything for those sparkles. So I'll just say that it's not something where I can, well, let's see what it looks like in red, or let's see what it looks like in pink, or any of that stuff. That's just too slow of a process. It's kind of either the sparkles or just a blue username for subscribers. So get in there and vote on that thread so we can see your opinion.
In fairness, everything looks better with sparkles.
Well, I guess the only thing that seems like a valid point. I mean, people are talking about seizures and things like that. I don't know that we're going to have that problem with it. It's a real minor thing. It doesn't even really distract me, as much as, say, someone having a moving image in their signature space, which obviously we want to allow. So, I can't see that argument. But I can see that, if down the road we have a ton of subscribers, having all these different areas of the forums just kind of lighten up, maybe there's something to be said about that. But at the same time, I would like to have something that sets our subscribers apart, because those are the people that will be supporting the site, because we will need donations. These things are not cheap. I'll say that moving to the server is going to probably leave a shortage in terms of what I can afford, and what we're taking in right now is virtually nothing. I haven't asked any money from anyone. We've had some generous donators and stuff thus far, but generally these things cost hundreds of dollars every month. And then the other thing that happens is if we are adding a trophy card site, that will be off-site, will require its own dedicated servers, and jumping into that and getting that functionality going before we're even taking any money in is going to probably amount to thousands of dollars every month. And so we'll get to a point where we're going to actually just have some kind of drive to raise some funds, and so expect that down the road as well. And it'll be one of those things where, if you help out and you're the donator and you're subscribing and all that, you're going to get those benefits, though. We're not going to forget about you. We just have to set some things apart that are a lot more bandwidth intensive, and things like that, programming-wise, have to be paid benefits. They can't be free. Otherwise, we can't afford to do them. So, with that being said, I'll say that, I'm going to try to get as much as I can free. The average member is not going to be without. Obviously, they're not already. They've got a lot of things, arcades and all that stuff. Everyone can access that. Everyone will be able to access tournaments and awards, everything. So don't think of the subscribers also as any kind of elite group that'll get all these things that the normal user won't, because that's not going to happen either. So I think we've been pretty fair with that, and I continue to take that stance. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if anyone has any ideas about ways to raise funds for the site, I'd certainly encourage people posting on the forums with their ideas. Maybe some of those ideas could help us out generating those funds in the long run.
Yes, indeed. So, I know there's a few services out there where you can set a goal and you can have, fundraiser. Just know, the long term, we're building the site out big. There's a lot of big stuff coming. Right now, with all the stuff that we have, it's a drop in the bucket, And if I had to say some of the big things, the trophy cards, we're going to have functionality with subscribers on the site, first off, or are also going to get access to the trophy cards. But not only that, you will have a store. You'll have things like that that you haven't even seen yet. And it may start as an Amazon store, but eventually we'll go to the point where we have our own store and we have our own connections and we're selling games. And things like subscribers are going to get discounts. We will give store discounts to subscribers for supporting us along the way and for supporting us to help us get those things to begin with. Those are, things like that they're huge, and we'll actually have people coming from all over the internet. Maybe they're coming to our site because they're shopping and they see a price on a game or something that they like. So it'll open up a much broader appeal where our site won't just be about trophies. It'll be about gaming events. It'll be about clans. It'll be about shopping. It'll be about maybe even buying T-shirts and things like that with game insignia on it. We want to offer all those things, and the only way to do it is to just keep building, always going forward.
Merchandising sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I've actually, I mentioned this before, and it was kind of premature. I mentioned it to the staff. It was prior to your arrival on the staff, but I have a connection with a gentleman that's a professional artist. He owns a tattoo shop, and he also does art that he travels around the country and stuff, and he sells. And it's very, very good. He does superhero art and stuff like that, and was actually, last I looked, was looking at opening an art gallery. That's how good of an artist he is. I'm talking about drawings, paintings on wood, and all kinds of crazy things that he does. He's just naturally very talented. And, I've had discussions with him about getting some of his art out there, but also merchandising it, where we could have the ability for, a clan to have him create a unique superhero image or clan image or something along that lines that could go on stickers, shirts, whatever, and then just sell that through the store. I think that'd be a pretty neat way for him to get his art out there, but then also help these people to have something there, because obviously you can't take a Superman and use that as your image. That's copyright infringement. But there's nothing to say you couldn't have a Superman-like looking character without flying the same colors in the S, or maybe it's in black and white or something, and put that with your clan name, for example. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So I've pre-made those connections in terms of that. So
it's going to be exciting times for us next year, then.
Indeed. We've got a lot of work on our hands. There's no doubt about it. People may or may not know this, but the plan is not only the trophy card site, but also an Xbox site. And above and beyond that, there's a lot to be added to everything. Overall, this site is primary, and obviously the trophy card site can be an in-between. It can support the Xbox site as well. I think there's an opportunity there. And not only that, when we get everything kind of our act together, so to speak, and we get to the point where we're a majority of the way done, we can very simply take all the same things that we offer here and duplicate the site and change it to an Xbox format. So what I mean by that is, we're the kind of the cookie cutter for creating the Xbox site, because it's the same except for its achievements over trophies. And there's no reason they can't have an arcade. There's no reason they can't have a store. Those kind of things. So I think it'll make the second one a lot easier.
I think, yeah, definitely. I think it's something that our community needs to bear in mind, because we are in a day and age of owning different platforms. So quite often I know a lot of people that have both Xbox and PS3. So if they've got an outlet for both, that's going to add more to the appeal of the sites.
Yeah, Plus, I mean, let's face it. That's some opportunity too with the other site. Another reason to have it off-site is the trophy cards. Having the ability, if you have both systems, wouldn't it be nice to have a card where you can display both stats? What's your Xbox gamer score and what's your trophy count? It's not just that moves and stuff are not just to separate them for the sake of how the servers run, but there's also some logic there in each of them supporting one another. If you were a member and subscriber of one site, you would need it to be familiar before you'd feel comfortable jumping over to the other one. If it's a totally different format and everything, that could turn you off.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's the plan. Are there any questions? Let me go ahead and ask if there's anyone out there in Twitch land that actually made it on time because of our time change. If there's any questions in the lobby or anything about any of the plans that we've been mentioning.
No questions so far, but everybody's saying the plans sound really good and they're looking forward to it. So but no questions at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a little bit reserved about talking about some of that stuff because we do have competitors out there, and one of the things is I encourage everyone not to share their ideas or any of the things that we've talked about around the net, because the other thing is I'd hate to have any other card sites or anything try to interfere or beat us to that. Not to mention, I'll just say this. Your gamer cards, appears to have been down because of being hacked. And I've heard a lot from different corners of the internet about that experience. And the general consensus, without naming any names, is that there's some problems with certain card site owners, wanting to hack the competition or put hackers onto the competition. The other thing is not to stir anything like that, because I don't have to deal with that headache. And security is very important, and not only security of the servers, but security of our ideas, so that they're not stolen or taken or warped into something weird elsewhere. And we just want to take the best of the things that we do and expand upon it and make the content all the things that members want to see. So if you continue to share ideas with us, we will continue to try to implement them. And that's all you can do. You can't fight against the grain and say, well, this is what I want, or they'll just have to be happy with this, because the customer, i.e. the forum member, is the boss. They're the ones that determine success or failure, because if I put all the things on there I want to see and they're not the things that Dante wants to see, then Dante's not going to come to the site or give a crap about it. He's going to want to see the things he wants. He's going to want to connect with people in the ways that he wants to connect with, and so we'll get that, we'll add that, we'll implement it, we'll upgrade it as we go along. So the focus now is to add subscription benefits. So if you think of something that you would like to see that's worthy of paying for and uses extra bandwidth and is kind of a programming requirement, then throw that out there. So one of the things I was thinking about doing was looking and seeing if we could bring up some images, some media files of the player for those that are not able to see it. And Dante, go ahead and talk for a minute. Let me see if I can find it. You're on, Dante. He's like, yeah, go ahead, put me on spot.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that player sounds proper sweet. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of members. I think that's pretty cool to have on your profile. But while you're sorting out images, I suppose should just quickly move on to a feature that we've brought in over the last couple of shows, which is a pick of PSN by myself. Every week we try and recommend a PSN game for listeners, games that you may not necessarily be aware of, or games that deserve attention from the PlayStation Network store. I know a lot of people are currently asking in the chat about Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, and that's actually my pick of the week for this week on PSN. I'm aware it's also a retail title, but Vita owners should be extremely happy with Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. It's been developed by Ubisoft Sofia and their Montreal studio. It's essentially a great Assassin's Creed game. I've had a lot of reviews sort of refer to it as a cut-down version of Assassin's Creed, but I can reassure people listening into this, it's not. It doesn't give me the impression playing it that it's a cut-down version at all. If anything, this game on Vita is as good as, if not better, than Uncharted Golden Abyss. The landscapes that you can see in the game are crazy when you get up the synchronization viewpoint. The combat runs smoothly. The touchscreen controls just absolutely complement the whole package as a whole, and the gameplay side of it is essentially the same as you would get with an Assassin's Creed full console version. So yeah, that's pretty much my pick of the week this week. If you have a Vita and you're looking for that AAA type game, then Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation's where you want to be with that.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll try and bring that every week. Let's try to make sure we have a Vita game and an arcade game we'll bring you. And I got those snapshots up. First, I'll show you, the player as it stands playing music. Actually, what this does is actually pulls YouTube videos. So when you make your playlist, obviously there's some that cannot be embedded, and it will tell you those. But you can usually find every song in some way, shape, or form. This player image is a little bit different than what it actually is now. You can set your own colors and whatnot. But I will say that this player has been changed. I reprogrammed it, and I display only 5 songs at a time. But you have a slight, a small button on kind of on the right-hand side, a slider where you can slide through all the games, and all the videos and songs, and it'll go up to 200 that you can store. So that's the image as it looks on the player. And you notice up in the upper left-hand corner of the player, there is a video screen. It's a small screenshot, and when you actually have that pulled up, it actually looks like this, Dante. If you can see that in Twitch, it actually plays the video there in the player, and you can still pause it, control, go to the next one, and even kind of fast forward and things like that down there at the bottom with the controls. Or you even notice there's a add to YouTube button. Where you can actually pull it up in its own window and on YouTube and watch the video, listen to the song there. Each one of these also allows you to take from someone else's player and add that to your song list. So I could go listen to yours, and if I say, hey, that's a great song, I could just click on the little plus button and add it directly into my playlist and listen to the song at my leisure. So it's pretty cool. I've turned off the autoplay feature so we don't drive each other nuts around around the forums when a lot of people are getting this. Yeah, it has the ability for you to turn it on and off by quite simply entering a playlist ID or removing it completely, and leaving that number blank removes the player from your profile. So it's a pretty neat little feature that I added. And going forward, I hope to do some more things like that. So this kind of came from a lot of people mentioning what they listen to. We got a lot of people that are big into K-pop and stuff on the site. So that kind of led me to, a lot of people are gaming, they're listening to music. Or maybe even the podcasts. They're on YouTube. You could pull those into your player and listen to these podcasts, for example, while you're searching and surfing around Trophies on PSN. So a lot of benefits to it, and I figured that that'd be something that everybody might like. So, and
yeah, and I was just going to say I can see some people getting driven mad by my playlist with things like Gangnam Style, but I also will drive people crazy. I can just see it now. GTA Eamon with the entire Grand Theft Auto soundtrack history on his playlist, and Kruger with all his K-pop. Oh man, I am really looking forward to that pop-out player and YouTube functionality within there. You know, being able to put all the music video playlists in there. I really, really do want to see that feature.
Yeah, we will add the ability for people to subscribe soon. That's another thing, you know, to just lay out where that's going, because we technically don't have any subscribers right now. We've had some people that have donated more than what the subscriber amount will typically entail, but I will say that, you know, there's some security involved with taking subscription funds, so we are looking into all of our options with that as well. It's another thing about moving. I want people to know it's not just a matter of, like, you know, putting a button on the site and saying, hey, we're taking subscriptions. We need to have what's known as an SSL security certificate, so that we have a link through a secure connection so that your information is secure. And I'm also looking at a server-side storage of credit cards, so that, or I mean, I should say not server-side, a user-side storage of credit card information, so that actually if you enter your credit card information as a subscriber, that we never actually see that none of that actually ever hits us. We're not responsible for storing it. And it's a program through Stripe.com, and so we're trying to look into that. PayPal is the one that causes all the headaches, and I know a lot of people have PayPal accounts, but we definitely need to kind of get everything lined up, because PayPal can also very easily shut a person down based on any complaint. So if we have somebody that pays a subscription, and then the yearly renewal comes up and they say, well, hey, I didn't accept that for whatever the reason. Maybe they did, whatever. PayPal typically doesn't give the company or website the chance to prove it. They just shut down all PayPal access until it's investigated. And we don't want that. We don't want to have problems. We don't want people to feel like we are responsible for storing their credit card data. So if we can remove that completely, that's what we're going to do, and make the site secure with an SSL certificate in terms of any dealings with entering any information. So we're trying to implement that as well, and that'll lead to the subscription services being offered formally. So just a little bit of heads up. I think people sometimes think, first off, they wonder, why haven't you done this yet? Well, it's real easy. You just add, I've got my money ready, and all these things, whatever. And I just want to put that out there so people have a little bit more understanding of the real process. Things are not as always as simple on the surface as they may appear, and I don't want to have people mailing me checks or anything and have to try to figure all that out. So we're going to have to come up with some kind of good system.
Yeah. You sold me on it, put it that way.
Well, I mean, don't you want to know that if you enter your credit card that it's secure? I mean, let's face it, if somebody said, hey, enter that stuff at your own risk, go ahead and send us a subscription, I'd be like, where do I mail my cash to? So, it's one of those things you just have to take it in stride and just know that we're working on it, and just know that it's a little bit more involved than what first it seems. So, but let's move on to some other news. And if there's not any other questions or anything that you'd like to hear about in terms of the site.
No, everybody's just saying take their money. So I think you've done a good job on selling some of the new features.
Take their money.
I've got that internet meme in my head with Fry from Futurama just throwing cash at people. Shut up and take my money. No, I'm sold on the feature, and I'm sure as more details about when that's going to be implemented and stuff come forth, then yeah, I think the forum and all our members will certainly get on board and get behind that.
Yeah, and we're not going to be talking about any grand amounts. Honestly, I'm thinking right now I'm thinking $30 a year is a yearly subscription to the site, which would include the content from the trophy card site. So essentially, if the trophy card site is only $5 or $6 a year or something like that, you'd be paying, 24, 25 bucks. I don't know how that translates into British, currency, but you'd be paying for probably about half you pay for a game, and to get all the content on both sites. So I think that's a pretty decent price. We're going to go for a quantity of subscribers versus, trying to add all this content and charge a lot of money or anything. And as you know, most card sites charge you to be able to refresh their cards. They charge you the $5 a year kind of thing for just refreshing. And so if we have that ability with just refreshing, and we have a lot of other offerings with the cards, I think that it'll be a no-brainer that that's a better product and cost.
Yeah.
And then you put that with all the stuff we'll offer on the site. Because, like I said, if we're giving discounts in the store and we're giving away games and stuff from time to time, and we're doing special events with subscribers, I think all those things will pay for themselves in terms of the fun and stuff that you'll have as a subscriber.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely excited about that. But as you say, I think we should probably move on to some news.
Absolutely.
And contain the excitement for another show.
Alrighty.
So obviously, we spoke before the show about what we wanted to cover. There's obviously been a lot of things gone on this week with things like Hurricane Sandy and lots of other news-related stuff. But as per usual, we don't just want to go into just repeating the news. So I've got some topics that sort of had in mind for us to cover this week. That sort of relates to the news. First thing I really want to cover really is, we're getting into that time of the year when it's sort of the mad Christmas rush.
Yeah.
When all the new games are coming out, and I just wonder what people's thoughts were, because I'm a PS3 owner and I'm also a PS Vita owner, and the next 2 weeks for me are an absolute killer. This Wednesday in the UK, it saw the release of Assassin's Creed 3 on PS3 and Assassin's Creed Liberation, which we covered in the pick of the PSN for PS Vita. On Friday, we saw Need for Speed Most Wanted come out for both platforms. Hitman, I believe, came out Friday. Call of Duty next week or so. We've had Medal of Honor Warfighter come out. And I just wonder, how many of these titles are sent out by? And is this really a good time to be sort of scheduling all the titles to be coming out around the same time? As I say, the PS Vita in the last week and a half has seen approximately about 10 brand new games come out for it via digital and retail, and yet for the last five months we've gone with barely any Vita games going. So what are your thoughts on the crowded schedules, KD?
Well, I don't know. This is something, we've mentioned before, like, when you release at the same time as a lot of other games, you run the risk of not being noticed and just putting yourself into the bottom of the barrel. Even a great game can fall kind of to the wayside and not be noticed. But obviously, every developer and stuff, they always, when they get closer to the holidays, they're always trying to put out, some of their best stuff so that, in the holidays people are buying, for family members at Christmas and things. So I don't know. I think there's a trade-off there. I'm one of those people, like, I always have, looking ahead, I always say, like, I want that game, I want that game, I want that game. But then when it comes down to it, I also realize I don't have as much time to play, especially like I used to. I prefer now to just pick, and so I think it makes me more selective. And I've always said there's games I've passed over before. Rage is a perfect example. I was really looking forward to Rage. However, at the same time, I skipped over it because other titles came out at the same time. And I've been promising myself that I'll get back to it, and I probably will buy it eventually, but I'll be buying it at the a used copy at a discounted price a year after it came out, and so. So I don't know. It's kind of it's got a risky move at some points. You would think that with nothing else being released, if I was a smart developer, I'd say, well, this is a pretty dry time for titles. I'm gonna throw mine out there, and it's gonna sell like hotcakes because it's gonna get more attention. So I don't know.
It's weird to see it because, as I say, I mean, more so this year than last, that there's just, as I say, there's approximately about 20 titles, major titles, coming out over the sort of 2.5 week period. And I just, I look at developers like Rocksteady who did the Batman games, and Batman Arkham, original Arkham Asylum was successful because it released in the summer when there was no major titles around, and people sort of in those months where everything's quieted down, and so it got a lot more traction. And Dead Island recently had the similar sort of success with that, and I do wonder, what on earth possesses people like Sony and EA to really rush these titles out? Because, as I say, beta owners for the last 5 months been complaining there's absolutely nothing to play. There's no regular release of games, and to the point of where you can wait 3 or 4 weeks at a time for a retail game. And so I don't know, it's like you say, it is bizarre, the thinking behind it, because essentially all these games will release in a 2.5 week period. They'll then have about a month and a half worth of sales before we enter what is known as the second Christmas period. For January to March, all the titles that I don't care how they try and dress it up, they push back because they want them to succeed, and they know that come November everybody's going to buy Call of Duty, so they push them back to the start of next year. And I just think, I think publishers and developers really need to start working together with this release calendar, because the danger, as you pointed out, is if you release too many things, games are going to get passed over. I mean, how many people didn't buy Dishonored because they were waiting a few days extra so they could get Assassin's Creed? And that's obviously going to be detrimental, not only to developers and publishers, but the industry as a whole, because for every game that doesn't succeed, that's potentially a studio shutting down and closing, no matter how the game is. And it's in their best interest to start working together on that. If they know Call of Duty is going to sell 20 million copies on different platforms, we're not saying don't release games at all, but surely give them a 4-week berth. Let the sales numbers roll in, then release your game. Or alternatively, try and make sure that your schedules fit in so that people purchase your games before something like that happens. But as I say, it just seems ridiculous that Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, which is a great game, came out on Wednesday. Then you get Need for Speed Unlimited. Next week we got Ogre Rhythm, Smart As came out on Friday on V, and all these other games, and they're all going to get missed because, obviously, as I say, Call of Duty is coming out, and even V runners are more likely to purchase the Call of Duty game on their PS3. I might be generally stereotyping a lot of people there, but the sales speak for themselves.
Yeah, and this is, we're taking it from the standpoint, too, of, most trophy hunters are going to play a game longer, and so I think we're going to pick a little bit more, because, you always hear trophy hunters, they talk about a backlog, and that comes from that mentality that we've got to be completionist, and we've got to, beat every game that we even have a trophy on our PlayStation network on, and we just have to, we have to look at the whole of, video games and say there's probably some people that are going to buy all the titles. They're probably going to play one for a week or whatever and put it down. And then there's going to be some of those people that are going to be stuck on a series no matter what. They're going to be playing the, Black Ops until, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 comes out, they're going to be playing that until Black Ops 2 comes out, and they're never really going to experience the other game types and stuff anyway. For example, you're mentioning Assassin's Creed, and then you're talking about Need for Speed. So if you look at the people that are, racing fans, how long has it been since the last racing game came out? So there's a lot there, I think, that, probably all these companies probably consider. And, at some point you're going to have to release your game. There's always going to be competition out there around that time. I guess just there's a lot of strategy probably involved in figuring that out because of all the differences in, like I said, the type of gamer that you're trying to appeal to. So, I mean, who's to say? PlayStation Network games do very well, and they're I've noticed the big thing for me, like I go to buy a game or something, you can usually wait, and a couple months later it's discounted greatly, or those kind of things. You can get demos more easily and play it and see if you like the gameplay than you can in most retail titles. There's a whole bunch of things like that that are that affect my buying decisions. So it's a very complex topic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always thought, surely if you want people, I mean, I get what you're saying about the people waiting for games, to get discounted in price. I just think if you have such a crowded release schedule, more people are likely to wait that extra couple of months for the price to come down, and then, as you say, pick the main one they want, and all those other titles get left to the side. And I think, from the publishers and developers' point of view, essentially what they should be aiming for is what they want. People buy those games full like brand new, which then they, again, reinvest back in the company for more games to be pumped out. If they're releasing into such a crowded market all at the same time, the money that they would get to reinvest and the money they would get from consumers for a brand new title is going to be extremely limited. And so this is why I can never understand that when we get to this time of year, why I can understand a game every other week. I really can. But to have 20 titles that essentially, vary from being okay to being must-buy, in 2.5 weeks, it's just, I genuinely cannot see the strategy that publishers and developers put into that. But I also think it's a bad deal for the consumer as well, because it's sort of then forced the consumer to choose, and anything that forces the consumer to do anything is not a good thing. But I do also wonder about the professional implications as well. I mean, as you know, the news team and the reviews and stuff that we write for Trophies on PSN, it's all voluntary at the moment. But I can understand from, like, say, a major site like IGN or 1UP or something like that, where with so many games coming out, I mean, even though they've got a lot of staff, with so many games coming out, it must be really hard to pour the time and effort into actually reviewing a game. So then I also wonder if such a crowded schedule can affect the review scores. I mean, we only have to go back a couple of years to look at Gran Turismo 5. That game required several weeks playing, and a lot of reviewers found some of the main important features that may have given Gran Turismo 5 a higher score. But because they were in such a rush around a crowded schedule, people didn't pour the time in, and then essentially the developers caught them out and said, well, actually, if you played to this level, you would have realised that damage is in the game, that it does phase in and it requires levelling over time. And so that's also going to have a negative impact for the consumers, especially ones that rely on review scores, because unfortunately there are a lot of people out there that will sort of base their purchasing decision based on review scores. And so from a professional point of view, from the journalists in the industry, it can't be easy for them. So why on earth do they cram all these games into one period? I don't get it.
Well, and that's, it affects a lot of things, and that is one thing that it does affect. And I would say, like, with an IGN, when they've reviewed games and stuff in the past, they've gotten a lot of just real negative press. Not only with some of their ethical stuff lately, but to point out that they went from being valued at like 600 million to now they can't even find a buyer at like 100 million, 1/6 of the value. It stems probably from a lot of those things, and when you become so tied in with all these companies on a corporate level, I don't give a lot of credence to a lot of those reviews anyway for those very reasons that you said, because if IGN is advertising for a game company and they're giving them high reviews, that in my book is something like we talked about before, where it should be a pertinent part of their review is like, hey, we are kind of in bed with this company, but here's our review. Because when you don't point those things out, it's almost unethical, even right on the surface. But more to it is when you look at release dates, I'm of the fan that, like, I'm the kind of person that I do this with movies and everything. Like, if a movie is out in the theater and it might have kind of that average excitement level, there's a lot of other movies out, I will wait and watch that when it comes on cable for free, because there's not that excitement factor of, like, seeing it right away, because you have to worry about story spoilers from people. Whereas like an Avengers or something like that, I'm there on day one, and I find that important because I don't want somebody telling me all about how awesome it is and I haven't seen it. So how that relates to games is the same kind of thing, where if I was a publisher and I was deciding when a title was going to come out, I'd be more worried about a game that people are going to buy right away for, say, all the multiplayer. For example, a Black Ops 2, where everyone from day one is going to want to play with their friends online with the multiplayer, than games that are, a title that, the multiplayer online following is not that big, because those are the games that people can pick up a year down the road. They're not missing that opportunity to hang out and play with their friends. So, from that standpoint, I guess I view things, the release, as you've got to kind of picture what games you feel you have to play right now as a bigger factor than, there's 20-something titles, if that makes sense. I couldn't pass up a Black Ops 2 release date compared to, if I was playing, let's say, Captain America or something was coming out, I want to play that game. I'm a Captain America fan, but if I didn't get it on day one, where I'm not playing multiplayer with people and I don't have to worry about that, if I pick it up a year down the road at a cheap price, that's where I think the consumer probably, their type of gaming habits are going to determine the success or failure of release dates. So. Dante, you're still having some connection issues, man.
Yeah.
So.
I do wonder if it's something that publishers. Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, I do wonder if that's something that developers and publishers need to look into in, sort of doing more research into that area. But I also do wonder, if they're going to look at crowded schedules, and they obviously have targets, sales targets they need to hit, then maybe that factor that they need to look at is the cost of full retail. Essentially, if you, for example, EA, you're bound to release quite a few games around about the same time in different genres, but maybe consumers would be more inclined to buy all those titles if the cost had been reduced. So, for example, if you had an opportunity to, say, for example, like myself, I wouldn't mind getting my hands on both versions of Need for Speed Most Wanted. Do I want to pay £80 for both of them? Absolutely not. But having said that, if I was given then a financial incentive which said, right, okay, well, we know you're interested in Need for Speed Most Wanted. If you can buy the PS3 version for 40 and the PS Vita one for 30, would that be something, that could swing consumers to buy both titles once they become more affordable? it's definitely something that the publishers and developers need to look at along with their retail partners.
Yeah, I'm actually getting that you're in danger of losing connection with us, but I kind of sort of heard a little bit of that. It's difficult to hear you. I apologize, and hopefully you're still coming across through the podcast feed. But yeah, I think too, just for the sake of our connection, we probably need to think about cutting ourselves short, unless you have some way of plugging in directly, or if you've tried that.
Bear with me. Just looking into it now.
Maybe try putting that plug in the wall and seeing what happens with our connection type. 'Cause I show a real strong signal here. Troubleshooting it live.
It's the best way.
But you wanted to talk about collector's editions as well, so let's talk about that.
Right, bear with me. I am moving my location.
Again, this is KryptoniteDragon here with Dante Zero on the move. Dante is going to talk while he jogs and carries his laptop. Yep. Now, don't go sitting outside now and getting yourself sicker, because I've already got a call clearly from talking to you over Skype. I probably caught your cold.
Internet viruses.
Yeah, I caught an internet virus. Go to the doctor, see what he's got for me.
Right, let's see if this works a lot better. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Brilliant. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Right,
it's
so
decent
we are
right now. And it just went to white. Back to yellow.
Awesome.
We'll keep an eye on it.
I'm back.
So collector's editions. Let's talk about that. Dante, we lost you. Got you back.
Awesome. I apologise about this.
It's okay.
Have to sort it out for next week.
We're gonna have to figure something out. We need to get a better signal going. So let's talk about collector's editions real quick, and then let's wrap this up for the sake of not going too long with our podcast as well. So.
Yeah. I was just going to say, obviously this week we've seen more details of collector's editions, and I'm curious to get people's thoughts on, if they're worth the money. I mean, being an avid collector myself, obviously I've got quite a number of collector's editions ranging from GTA 4 to the recently Assassin's Creed 3 Freedom Edition, and many others since then. But when you sort of look at some of the costs of them, I don't know, I do always wonder if their value for money. I mean, even as someone that's passionate about collecting games like myself, it just seems weird that, coming back to the whole crowded release schedule, that companies want to release collector's edition after collector's edition in such a crowded thing, and so then you're bumping up the cost of the actual game and whether or not the goods are worth it. Personally speaking, I think it's one of those things that you sort of have to have a bit of foresight into. So for example, as I say with the Assassin's Creed 3 Freedom Edition, my main thing with that was that I would get that kind of figurine, and I love the box case and the presentation of it. So for me, it was worth the money. However, whether or not someone else would be willing to pay £80 for the same thing, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'll say it from the standpoint of me. I'm not. There's a few games I wish I would have got some of the collector's editions just because I'm a big fan of them. Fallout is one of the ones that comes to mind right off the top. But I have experienced a few things in the past with collector's editions where I had an opportunity one time where I pre-ordered. I put some cash down for a regular copy of the game, and then on a midnight release, I get there and find out they had reserved a collector's edition for me. And obviously, the game in the U.S. was valued at about $60, and I ended up paying like I don't know, 100 and I don't remember the prices at this time, but I would say I paid for the game and what was within the collector's edition, and I took it and sold the rest of the things in the collector's edition and got more than my money back of what I paid for everything. So after taking the game out of the collector's edition and selling off the parts and pieces, I ended up actually making a little bit of money. So it was kind of a funny little tale in the end because I realized some of these things, people like to have just the pieces out of the collector's edition, and they're willing to pay for those, a fancy case or something like that, whereas you just might care about the game disc. If the game disc looks the same as everything else, it's not, anything in particular to separate those, and still the potential is there. But one of the things that strikes me with the collector's editions, a lot of times it can be books and it can be sketches, it can be a statue. I guess it just matters, what you're getting in those benefit of the collector's editions. If it's worth it to you and it's something that you're going to keep and is it going to have long-term value. If it's some obscure game, it may be a rarity thing. It may be if they sell very little of them, it may be something that could become very valuable. But at the same time, if it's something, it's a big game. I go back to like the Fallout. You probably could find that even today and probably find it relatively inexpensive and still get all the parts and pieces. So I don't know. It's like any kind of collectible. It often has a lot more value to the person than it does to the reality of collectors. Comics, it's the same kind of thing.
So just looking at, I mean, say for example, there's an upcoming game that you wanted to purchase that you're really a fan of. What would it take the publisher to persuade you for yourself? What would it take the publisher to persuade you to part with the extra cash to get that collector's edition?
What I think more intrigues me more when things like that come up is having extra content on the discs. In terms of like having footage and things like that, or even any kind of extra levels or partial levels or anything like that you could play. I think those kind of things would be big hits for gamers, because if you're getting something like that no one else is going to have access to, that relates directly to the game and the gameplay, I think those are things that people are going to like more than including art books or things, because those are the kind of things that you set on you're like, well, yeah, that's cool, and you look through it once and you set it on your shelf and you forget about it. So that's my impression, is that if you wanted to reach gamers, put in something unique, put in a different costume, put in something where I'm reminded before of pre-orders where you're playing Batman and you can play as the Joker if you pre-ordered or whatever. Things like that. If you could do that with a collector's edition each time, that would be really cool, and I think you'd hook a lot more people on them.
Yeah, see, I'm sort of the opposite thinking of that, because the thing with it is, I think if I'm going to pay double than what the game's actually retailing for, then I want a unique object, something that's going to last. Because what I quite often find with pre-order bonuses or DLC, included with your collector's limited edition, is that a lot of the time that stuff then goes on for up for sale a year later on the PlayStation Store. So, at first it feels like, yes, you're getting something special, you're getting that extra content, but then a year later everybody can have access to it, and therefore, in some respect, it devalues it a little bit. and so it doesn't quite make it as special. And you know, I also have to caution that a lot of people would have to worry about, you know, DLC being included on the disc. I mean, look at the grief that Capcom have received over DLC being included on the disc. They do make a compelling argument, which is, well, we need the assets on the disc, and so what we do is when someone purchases it, we unlock those assets via a digital download key. But still, I think that's a cheap, horrible tactic to sort of confuse the consumer a bit into getting something that really should already be there. You know, if you're going to add extra DLC, it should be after you've completed the project and it's gone gold, not before. You know, I'm all for them planning DLC after the release date, or, you know, they're giving you extra bonus day one, but don't charge people for it. Or if it's going to be DLC that comes out in 3 months' time, then, you know, there's no argument that you can make that can justify having that DLC in 3 months' time included on the disc and downloading a key to unlock it. Which is why I often think, you know, from a collector's point of view, and someone's passionate about collecting, I'd rather have those physical objects because they do carry their value, they do hold on to the value. But also, I mean, I know what you're saying about, like, people may not necessarily come back to it, but, like, for example, my Gran Turismo 5 Collector's Edition, it came with a racing magazine, which is only produced for people that purchase that. Like, even now, I still go back and look at that once in a blue moon. You know, as people who know me well, I've often posted quite a lot of pictures of the figurine collections that I have on my shelf, and I do sort of go into the display cabinet and sort of check on them, clean them up a little bit, and sort of check them out every now and again. And I do think, you know, that's a good thing to have as a collector. The only thing that sort of concerns me is just the rising cost of it. I mean, Skyrim, when that released last year, they did a collector's edition. It was £150. Within 3 months, I know people that managed to pick it up for half the price. And that sort of makes me cross a little bit, because it's the same thing that happens with my Killzone 3 Hellgast edition, which is, you know, it was only sold through one retailer here in the UK. Less than a month later, it dropped half in price.
Yeah, because they probably make a ton of them and they don't sell as well. Because, I mean, I don't know. I think £150, you know, collector's edition is starting to get a little pricey. Particularly when you look at, like, it's the same kind of thing here. You look at some of the things that have been put in with games, and it's almost nonsensical, or it's you know, it's like the thing that comes to mind. Call of Duty had the night vision goggles or whatever, and it's like, you know, yeah, that's an interesting little gimmick, but at the same time, you know, I don't know exactly how that relates directly to the Call of Duty. It's not anything specific to a game character or anything like that. So I guess for me, you know, I could see buying something if you had a statue of a dragon from Skyrim, or you had, you know, a bobblehead from the Fallout series being cool. But, you know, I'm more like, you know, in terms of collectibles, I'd rather have special content on the disc as well. You know, having something like that, as opposed to, like you were saying, even the art books and things, a lot of times they are printed separately, and people don't realize that they can be included with it. But, you know, it might also be a book that you can find on Amazon. So, yeah, you know, I don't know. I guess it relates to a lot of things in terms of your view of it being a collectible, and if you're actually a person that actually has collectibles, or if you're looking at it as a gaming add-on where you want to enjoy it with your game, if that makes sense. You can't play with a Skyrim statue while you're playing the game of Skyrim. It doesn't help you. It doesn't, you know, it'll look cool on your dresser, but you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I see what you're saying about lack of functionality, but I don't know. I mean, you know, there are some editions that do sort of have functionality. I mean, one of the articles that we covered this week was a little bit was about the new Metal Gear Rising Collector's Edition, It came with a Raiden figurine, which you could actually control the pose, depending on which steel case you got, depends on what bit of DLC you got in game. But one of the additions that we also mentioned that we still yet get any real concrete information about if they're coming to the West or not is, I'm trying to remember the specific term that Konami used for it, but it's essentially just a lamp, a UV lamp with Raiden's blade embedded into the actual stand of it. Now, see, that for me is a useful collectible. I'd get some use out of that. But I hear what you're saying about statues as well, in respect of, well, as you say, you're not going to play them while you're playing with the game. But I just think, you know, it's one of those things that it is always a reminder. I mean, like, for example, if I look at the figurine that I have of Nathan Drake, I don't sit there and play with it like it's a toy, but it does remind me and puts me in a state where I reminisce about the times that I've had with the game.
Yeah.
And the same with Infamous 2. And so, you know, while they may not have any functionality, they do serve a purpose in reminding and helping you to reminisce about that. And as you say, they are quite cool to show off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're right that maybe perhaps the pricing needs to be looked at from companies. I know some companies are starting to sort of really get feedback on what people want to see in their collector's edition. I know that Deep Silver recently sent out a web page address which said, you know, if you want to vote on the collectibles for the new Dead Island Riptide game, you know, get involved, vote in our survey, and, you know, we might release that as a collector's edition. I think that's probably great, but at the same time you do have to be careful, because if they then turn around and say, right, well, we're going to give everybody what they wanted, but as you say, it's going to cost £150, I don't know. I mean, as a collector, I always have to be conscientious of the price, because as we pointed out before, with such a crowded release schedule that basically runs from the end of September right through to the end of March, you know, being able to purchase all the games that you want, especially if you're a fan of franchises, certain franchises, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, next year we've got the return of God of War, for example, and Bioshock. Now, they've got some pretty sweet collector's editions, but they're released within 2 or 3 weeks of each other. Now, if you have to drop £100 on me, you know...
Yeah.
You know,
you're paying as much as you pay for a PlayStation. So yeah, that's you know, problematic. The other thing, you know, with collectibles, people you know, that are true collectors know that you would save the box, you would save, in many cases you wouldn't open something. So that's the other thing that can occur with the collector's edition too, is does opening the disc, is that the only version of that case? Is it linked heavily with the whole box that contains the you know, the statue or whatever? Because a lot of that also loses a lot of value as a collectible when you kind of pop the cover on it. So that's the other thing too, is having the ability to you know, kind of keep it in whatever state you want to. Because I know, you know, I use the analogy of comic book collecting. You know, again, you know, I've known some serious collectors, and I've got some issues and stuff that are probably, at least I used to before they were stolen. I had some pretty serious issues, but I always kept I always did this when I had one that I was seriously looking at collecting. I would buy it with the cardboard backing, all in the wrapper and everything like that, and I would leave it there. And if I wanted to read the story, I would just buy some ripped up, crappy copy that I didn't have to worry about. So. You know, I guess you run into that too, where, you know, if it's truly a collectible, you're not going to, you know, open it and let your kids play with the statue, and then, you know, so, you know, who knows? If you're attracting me as a gamer, I think content on the disc and things like that is going to mean more than paying an extra $100 for a statue.
I don't know. I'm
my honest opinion.
like that, because I'm just kind of like...
That's a lot of money to throw around.
I understand the difference between sort of standard collectors and true collectors, but I always thought, that even if you pay the extra money for it, you should still be able to enjoy it regardless of the value a couple of years down the line, which is pretty much why I crack open all my collector's editions, and I use some of the objects that I get in there, like for example, I use the Rockstar GTA 4 safety deposit box to keep stuff in. I've used my GT5 USB memory stick, and I think that adds to the value of my enjoyment of the actual collector's edition itself. I think if I left everything there in its sort of cellophane wrapper and then just went out and bought a cheap copy of the game, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I enjoyed the game, and it's great that I have a collector's edition, but if I don't get to use that and I don't get to enjoy it, I do wonder, if it's worth paying out the money in the first place, because as a collector, to a certain degree, money isn't an object unless it gets into stupid numbers, like I say, where you're talking 150 quid, only for it to drop down to 70 quid less than a couple of months later. That's where I draw the line of, financial implications of that. But at the same time, if it's 80 quid like the Assassin's Creed Freedom Edition, I'm more than happy to crack that open because of all the goodies, and I want to have a look at it. I actually took a look at the George Washington Diary the other day, and it's pretty interesting stuff. Fits in with the game lore, and it's quite nice to sit down and read that. And I think if I'd been a true collector, I probably would have missed out on that, because I would have just left it in its cellophane box, and that would have been quite disappointing, because in 10, 20 years' time, if it's still in its wrap, but I'd never know what's in there.
Yeah. And there's a unique opportunity there for, when you have things that cross over to different areas of entertainment. You could include, if you have an Avengers game, you can include a movie poster, and you could do things like that I think would get the different ends of, entertainment industry working together. And, I'd like to see more of that in terms of extras. So I guess to sum it up, you like the more practical things that come in it that you can actually use. I'm more like I would rather have disc content and some extra things like that, and then probably the majority of people that buy those collector's editions, most of them are include a statue. Would you say, is that the most common thing? An art book, a statue?
Tends to be an art book and a statue, but most of the times the art books that actually are included are stuff that will never go on sale. So they're, whenever something releases with an art book or a statue, sometimes you will find companies like Ubisoft who do release statues for separate buys, but you'll never see them release the art books on their own.
Yeah. Now, what about there's obviously some too that are various levels. How often do you think you see that, where you have like an elite collectible edition, and different levels of? That's not very common, is it?
It's more common than you might think. And that, as a collector, that kind of makes me cross sometimes, because you've got the standard edition, you've got a collector's edition, and then you've got, I probably should rephrase that actually. You get the standard edition, the limited edition, and the collector's edition. Now, quite often the limited edition just contains extra content on a disc or a small art book, or it's a dumbed down version of the collector's edition. But quite often what I have seen is where you have 3 different versions of the game, 3 different variations.
And you can't get all of them all in the same one. Yeah.
But you can't get, if you fork out for the expensive collector's edition, there may be stuff that you've missed out that's included in the limited edition. In fact, one website did a very good article recently, which I'll cover later on in the weekly roundup, which is to do with pre-order bonuses, where they sort of had a look at Assassin's Creed 3, for example. If you wanted to get all the pre-order goodies, you would have to pre-order the game from 5 different shops, which is absolutely ridiculous, because then what you've got is you've got 5 different versions of the standard game with DLC. Then you've got the the Join or Die edition, which has a different steel case book to the one that's included in the Freedom edition. So that kind of does make me cross sometimes. It's kind of like, okay, if as a consumer, if you're gonna release different variations of the same game, make it consistent at least. If you're going to release, dumb down the collector's edition to the limited edition, that's fine, because that incorporates one consumer's budget range. Standard game, just be what it is. If you need to throw DLC in there, make sure the pre-order is consistent across all shops, not just one. And have your collector's edition. And I think the problem with it, not only for me as a consumer, is it's frustrating because it can be quite confusing, especially if, say, for example, your mum, dad, auntie, grandma, or whatever knows that you like a franchise but wants to buy you it as a gift for Christmas. I'm not being disrespectful to the older generation, but some of those people may not even know too much about buying games at all. And then when they go in a store and they say, well, my grandson's asked for this, it's going to be a very confusing purchase for them, which then puts them off altogether, and it is frustrating for consumers as a whole.
Yeah. Well, I know I've had with, like, pre-order bonuses, I've had a lot of problems with that in terms of, to give an example out there, I talked to, where did I buy that from? Maybe it was Best Buy. And I talked to one of the employees extensively about how the pre-order bonuses and everything worked. And he's just basically, you sign up for this, you give me your email, blah, 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 and you're signed up for each month a new bonus will come out. And, all the way leading up to the day of release. You can get things like the Nuketown 2024 map and all this other stuff. I was like, oh, that sounds great. So I took it, I signed up for it, and about a month later, I got this email that says I had missed my opportunity to sign up for one of the pre-order bonuses. And so I went and I signed up for that month's pre-order bonus, and it gives me the opportunity to win it's like I can sign up and win an all-terrain vehicle that's painted and stuff with a camo scheme, blah, blah, blah. It's like your choice of what you want to be entered in, or do you want this extra game content? It's like either one or the other, and you got to sign up for them. One's a chance to win, another one's some guaranteed little, something in the game. And the expectation is, from looking into this, is that every month I'm supposed to go and put my details in and pick which one I want every month leading up to the release. And it's like not anything like I was described when I asked them. And, obviously if every pre-release bonus and stuff starts leading to this, where it's like I've got to go on and keep up with it and make a choice and do all this other stuff, it's like, what the hell am I pre-ordering a bonus for? Give myself a bunch of work of trying to pick what contest I want to be in?
I was going to say, I'm just curious, would you rather have the maps or an all-terrain vehicle? And I'm not being funny, I'm sure, a nice brand new car or whatever would be nice, but at the end of the day, the whole concept of it is you signed up in the first place to get the maps. Everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah, and that was my thing, was I was like, well, I want Nuketown, 2024 or whatever right on the release. And and then I'm even been getting some stuff. I got it kind of late about a double point weekend right at the start or something for pre-ordering. But it's like it's so skewed in terms of like, well, what the heck here? I've got to pick and choose, and these poor sales guys, they don't know how that really works. They're not going to sit down and take the time. So if you go in and ask them, from one to the other how that works and when's the content coming out. And people that sign up late, what happens if the first month is already passed? Are you now exempt from, you can't get that stuff, you can't get the Nuketown if you don't sign up by a certain date? It's almost ridiculous to set it up that way. But literally...
I was just going to say, I'm curious then, would you prefer something along the lines of, say, what the developers of Hitman did recently, which is no matter where you pre-order the game from, yeah, or which version of it, you've got a download code for the Hitman Sniper Challenge on whichever platform you choose. So then it would give you, it was like a mini game with, trophies or whatever, online leaderboard. It was only a small glimpse of the game, but it gives you an insight into the game itself so that you can justify the pre-order for whichever version you get.
Exactly, and that's the way they should be, and that's where I was talking earlier about, what I'd like to see in my collector's editions, and not make it something that's released later, because the other thing that happens is they say it's exclusive content, and like you said, it's exclusive for a while, but then it's like the Nuketown map, that'll be released in some fashion to everyone. They're not just going to give it to the people that pre-order from, Best Buy or whatever. They're going to release it to everyone. So when they say it's an exclusive, it's really, that's a lie. It's not an exclusive. An exclusive means you can only get it this way. Not it's a delayed, delayed release for everyone else kind of thing. It's a delayed exclusive, or however you'd want to title it. And I think that's where you run into. Yeah, I think that's where you run into. You've got too many companies trying to buy it from us because we've got an agreement to get this out sooner. And I think it's almost a little absurd, and it reminds me of Microsoft paying to have not get content earlier, mind you, but to have it delayed on everything else, because that's essentially what's going on there. If you look at the big picture, they're not paying to get the map released sooner. They're paying to have it delayed on everyone else, and it's what's known as a timed release, and they pay millions of dollars for that every time. So you got to look at things for what they are and their effect on people, and this kind of thing makes me it almost upsets me more than it's like anything like, oh, I get the Nuketown 2024 maps earlier. Now it's like, I've got a chore to do, and I've got to keep up with it, and they appear to be lying to me, and the salesperson has no clue how it really works, and I get an email saying I missed out, and they're like, well, nobody told me about that. It's so.
I mean, even coming back to the Hitman thing, I mean, they're giving that away free, and to some extent that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because essentially, developers have to pour time and resources in away from the game to actually do that. At the same time, I can't help thinking that, if, say, for example, someone, let's just say hypothetically, Activision did it with Call of Duty, so they said to me, right, if you pay £5, what we will do is we will grant you access to one of the upcoming maps that you can access through your old game as DLC. This will only be available to people that paid the £5 and own an existing copy of the game. Then, I would be fine with that. I think a lot of gamers would be.
Yeah. I think they just need to get it sorted. They need to get it sorted in a better way, presented in a better way, and make it so it's more uniform across. Because ultimately, the gaming company just wants you to get some pre-order purchases in, and they should incentivize that and not make it so outlandishly complicated or varied across every store. This is no different than like we were talking about, where you have overseas, and the game can be different, or the release date can be very different, and all that, and they need to coordinate that better so as not to, basically piss off a part of their gaming community, because it's like, well, we could release it to England, but we're going to delay it 2 months and stuff like that. It's like, well, the game's ready, it's ready, and when they handle things poorly like that, it to me it speaks volumes of it's more about the sales than it is about giving us anything or encouraging us. So
I think to summarise it up, it's just a case of, if games companies got their pre-orders right, then maybe what you'd find is that more people will be willing to shell out for collector's editions and various editions if they can get the pre-order scheme sorted. Maybe that's something that they really need to start looking into more so now, as they try and release various different versions at various different costs. They need to be justifying that with giving people a preview of the game up front with a decent pre-order.
Yeah. And people are really, from my perspective, I would say, I see a lot of this. I see people are particular to certain publishers and studios and things for the way they do handle things, because that plays an effect. There's, just to point out, people like Stargate have certain EA, that he doesn't like their business practices and he refuses to buy their games. And that speaks volumes of, there's probably a lot of people like that out there, that the way the company acts and treats people, they probably do change their buying habits. And it might not be a big effect on their income overall, but I mean, it's still in effect. So you would think that they would handle stuff like that with care and see that they're keeping their customers happy with the content and things. And what strikes me is that it can be, as a business overall, how it can be so different and be so, one extreme to the other, from one company to the next. The way they charge for extra content, everything. It's crazy. Maps, having a map pack, buying it. One year you've got, Call of Duty, you're buying the entire map pack and Elite all at one price, and the next year they say, well, we're going to piece out the maps again, and how they just, what happened in between there? They lost connection.
I'm curious to hear what our community say. So, there's only so much we can cover on the podcast.
Right.
I'll definitely sort of put that out in one of the forum threads over the course of this week, because I'd be really interested to see how our community do gauge collector's editions, whether they're valuable, whether they're not, whether they're worth the cost. Do pre-orders play into that?
This might be a good one for. This might be a good one for when you put the article up about podcasts. Put a little poll in there.
Yeah.
See what people think about the various things. If it's worth it. If it's only worth it if they got certain things included, and see what results we get.
Yeah, I'd be interested to come back to that with some community feedback on it.
Yeah, maybe each week, you could do something like that, and certainly, we can put poll results up and stuff on the next podcast. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but okay, I think we need to wrap her up. We're into about what, an hour and a half?
Yeah.
And your connection's been quite better since you plugged in or jogged to your neighbor's house and plugged in or whatever you did. You hooked up your satellite phone. Your Batman satellite phone that you got in a collector position. But thank you, Dante, for talking with us today. And as always in the future, feel free, folks, to include your comments or even any topics that you just talk about, and we'd be happy to include your comments and questions in the podcast if you text them up there in the chat room live. And thank you.
I was just going to say, just before we go, I want to make people aware of some of the things that we've got planned for next.
Oh yes.
Next week obviously sees the release of Game Informer's digital December issue, where the cover game is GTA 5.
GTA.
So there's going to be a lot of information blowout over the course of this week.
Needs more GTA.
Not that's what the comments and tweets are saying. More GTA. You can guess who that is going to be, and obviously that's coming from our guest next week as well, who will be GTA Man. We're bringing him back to talk about all things GTA. So what I would say is, if anyone does see any of the information over the course of the coming week, or wants to put questions forward on that in time for next week's podcast, and any questions they want to put to GTA Man on the subject as well, then do email me, do let me know, and we'll cover that all on next week, because I'm really psyched for next week. I can't wait for this week with all the information to come out and to sort of collate it all together next week with GTA Man. It's going to be a fantastic show.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I hope to make it. You know, I'm going to be entertaining some out-of-town guests from New York. You know, with the hurricane stuff and everything like that, I'm putting up some of my family. So hopefully, you know, hopefully I'll be able to make it. I look forward to it. It sounds like a really good topic, and I'd love to be a part of that because you know, I like me some GTA too. So, looking forward to it. That's awesome.
Definitely.
Alrighty, folks. Thank you for joining us with our podcast, and thank you for those that are listening live and putting your comments into the chat. And we will see you next week, as they used to say when they ended Batman, the same bat channel, same bat time. Thank you, and have a great day.
Bye.